Hello, and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Randomized. We finished the Discord preset last time, so now it's on to move on to the Mass Hysteria preset, which changes something key about the way that the original Legend of Zelda works. Originally, you have to get all 8 pieces of the Triforce and then go to level 9 and fight Ganon. In this one, level 9 is actually open from the start, so you don't need any of the pieces of the Triforce. You can just head straight into level 9. It's not quite that easy, as the room that Zelda's hidden in is locked. And the only way to unlock it is to kill Ganon. So you at least have to find the bow and silver arrow and a sword in order to actually be able to kill Ganon. So that actually makes it so that once you find those items, you can go ahead and kill Ganon and find Zelda. The only bad part about that is, well, the silver arrow could be found in level 9. In fact, any important item can be found in level 9. So you will probably have to go throughout level 9 in order to find something that you'll need. And if you don't have everything you need in order to fight Ganon, and you find his room, well, you either have to die or do a forced reset. So that might be one issue. Before it comes too long, I should mention, as you've noticed, that one of the other check marks that this quest does is make it so that the sword, like the wooden sword spawn, is somewhere completely different. This adds almost like a stealth kind of mechanic in that you kind of have to maneuver around enemies rather than kill them in order to find something to hit them with. Also, as you can see here, it has a very purple dungeon. One of the things that this preset does is randomize where dungeons start. One of the side effects of that is that it takes away what dungeon number it is. For instance, if you go into what is quote-unquote the Eagle Dungeon, which is normally level 1, it won't say that. So you have no idea what dungeon you enter when you first enter one. And all the palettes are swapped, so you can't even deal with that. In fact, the palettes are swapped so much that it actually has the weird thing of actually having palettes that do not appear in normal Zelda. In fact, there are some outright garish dungeon palettes that, well, spoilers, you will be seeing later on. Also, one thing you might have noticed earlier on, I had a slight technical hiccup, so there was a slight bit of jump when I went to the pause menu a little earlier on, and I also skipped out on abusing a gambling room, which, as you also noticed, now the values that you get, can win from gambling, is actually changed. And since I really don't have anywhere to go, any preset, I'm just going to reset the pay room. Also, I probably haven't noticed it, and you've probably noticed it. We're a wizard. We're a wizrobe. The most recent version of Zelda Randomizer, Zelda 2.0, although Zelda 2.2 is the most recent version, added the ability to change your sprite so that you can not, Link being boring, you can change it to certain enemy sprites. And the problem with that is that the palettes don't quite match what a normal enemy would be, and animations look kind of weird if you're moving up and down. As you can see, as I exited that door, he kind of glitched. But then again, he is a wizard. Now, as you can see, one issue with having it so that the wooden sword spawns randomly, this little opening area kind of sucks. Mainly because it's basically entirely luck-based on finding either a shop that sells a bomb or the candle, and that is that has to be the first thing. Either that has to be the first thing you find, or you have to find the wooden sword, which is kind of a pain. As you just saw for a brief second, the Armos Knight locations have also been swapped so that the item, what normally would be the dungeon or the power bracelet, isn't where it used to be, and rather than the power bracelet being underneath it, it's the bow. So we have one of the 3, technically 2 if you don't count the sword, items in order to beat the game. So this run actually might be short. So depending upon how lucky I get in the dungeons, this could be only a 4 dungeon video, or run I should say, or it could be a while. Because even though you can beat the game early, you might want to stack your equipment up a little bit, like see if you can find where the red ring or some of the other good equipment is. Also, one thing that's changed from the Discord preset, the go anywhere you want areas have been swapped. So they're not all, you can just walk into one, they're not all underneath power bracelet rocks. This has a weird side effect, as you can see here. That staircase appeared out of nowhere, and that isn't like a whistle room. That staircase was basically generated by that room, and that's definitely not supposed to be there. But that's just a side effect of it being a randomizer, and also I died. Yeah, that's one of the things that sucks about, again, the wooden sword being missing, as I have no way to defend myself. So I am basically really desperately looking to hope to find the either wooden sword or something that sells either the candle or the bomb, so that I can actually, fight things. And it doesn't help that Lionels and other hard enemies can appear in, well, any room. Okay, at this point I am just wandering around aimlessly, so I think it's time for, well, some speeding up. Finally, I now have access to something that can do damage, so I'm not just wandering around trying not to get hit by enemies and failing miserably at it. And plus, the candles seem to be a lot cheaper than usual, so even though I have max money, I still like the fact that I can get things real cheap. And I think the candle is going to help us out a lot, because a wizard, I suppose, needs some sort of fire magic. Oh, also one thing I should mention, if I don't know if it would have been noticed by now, but the overworld for this run is actually a mixture of the first and second quest overworld. So the way it actually works is that it goes on a screen by screen basis and either picks the secret, because pretty much every screen in this game has some sort of secret, at least on the overworld. It'll go screen by screen, and it seems like it can randomly picks about, okay, should it be the Zelda 1, or it's not Zelda 1, second, or the first quest or second quest secret. So you really got to know where things are hidden, or like the little hidden spots for not only the first quest, but the second quest. And I don't know if you played the second quest, but the second quest has some pretty dickishly hidden stuff. And we're now at a new level. And I have no idea what it is. It looks like level 3 or 7, and I don't know what it is, but it seems like a stroke of luck, or it seems like fate is on our side. We have the magic wand as our first item. Unfortunately, we also have wizard robes. And yes, those are Link sprites that have replaced the wizard robe. So it seems like it swaps it, and it still does just as much damage. But it seems like it swaps the two sprites, which also can have some weird looking glitches. But one nice thing about, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the last video set, but the rod is actually really good to find normally because the way it works is it's technically a white sword that can always shoot beams. If you try and like say hit a dark nut or something, like you normally would a sword, it'll work just like a sword, and you can actually kill certain things as if it were if it were a sword. And I really did not mean to pick up that Triforce, as I'm gonna have to go through that room with the Wizrobes again. Which you can notice if you notice that also that glitch that I used in the first run, where you can open up a key door if it's the first room in a dungeon and it's locked and it's to the top. It also works with bombs, apparently. So if there is, if you walk straight into a dungeon and the top wall is bombable, and you exit the dungeon and then re-enter, it'll be open for you, which saves you a bomb and is nice. But if you might have been really attentive, or know the way that the dungeons in first quest works, you can tell we are in what is technically would be referred to as the Moon Dungeon, but is level 2 of the first quest. Since that and level 1 are the only dungeons that have items that just straight drop on the ground, you can tell that this is either level 1 or 2. And since it doesn't seem to be the way level 1 will work, well, obviously it's level 2. And as you can tell, right here, something is kind of off. The gels should be dying in one hit. Not only would it be one hit from a wooden sword, but the rod/white sword should really kill it in one hit. Well, you see, one of the things that the Mass Hysteria preset does, as well as the other stuff that I've mentioned earlier, it shuffles how much health enemies have, which can be a real pain or a real blessing. As Keese, or the little bat guys, can either have the same amount of health, which the game technically refers to as 0 health, basically 0 health meaning that it can die in one hit even if you hit it with the boomerang, to up to 4 HP. So that would take one strike of the magical sword in order to kill. And that's on every enemy except for bosses. Bosses, their health doesn't change, but that does technically mean that you can fight blue Wizrobes that have the highest health in the game at 13. So 4 magical swords. Well, yeah, 4 magical sword strikes, which is kind of insane. Another thing that's randomized is what enemies spawn in each dungeon, as if that was level 2, there should only really be like the little snakes and Gorias in there. Maybe a Moldorm or 2, but nothing harsher than that. That had level 6 enemies in there. Wizrobes, likes, those kind of things. And that can be a real interesting thing, as you can have, like, say, level 1 inhabited with really hard enemies, like with the level 6, like that I would have, the enemies I faced in what technically I guess you could call level 2. Like in here, I have no idea what kind of enemies I'm going to face in here. And unfortunately, it's Pulse Voices, which if I had either an arrow or the silver arrow would be really easy, but with only a kind of fake white sword, really can't do much with. Also, one nice thing about the rod that I kind of noticed, I don't know if it's Zelda Randomizer being weird or if it's in the actual game, but yeah, as you can see there, the wand's hitbox is kind of off. I shouldn't be able to hit those kind of dark nuts from the front, but if I change my direction while it's in the swing animation, and I'm going up and down, it seems like Lord knows what the hitbox is on that but you can use it to do some really weird things. It kind of works from the side, but it's not as easy to do as like going up and the enemy facing down. You can actually use it to kind of like, I guess, kind of hammer throw the thing, like make it move to like swinging across you, which is kind of neat. Also, judging by the enemies that I'm fighting, the Gibdos and just the others in the Pulse voices, this seems to be level 5 enemies, and it's level 1. So there's going to be 2 items in here, which is kind of nice to find. And normally I would like to have the magical sword when fighting these things, but, well, it's randomized. You can't really be picky about what you have. I think it was in this dungeon where I realized that I could do this little rod trick because I'm having way too much fun trying to abuse it than, you know, pick up the heart container that's just sitting there that I could probably use. Since the Triforce actually served technically no purpose, since you don't have to get all the pieces, really Triforces only act as a quick way to get out of the level in a nice full heal, so it's kind of makes you have to use it like one. So rarely do I actually want to pick up the Triforce as soon as I get it, because, well, I want to find things first. And here's something we did not find in the last run at all, either of the boomerangs, or at least didn't find them until much later than they're actually useful, which is basically the first dungeon, and that is it. Boomerang is usually a completely useless item. However, if you get lucky with the randomization of enemy health, since it goes plus or minus 4 hits per each enemy. If an enemy has, like, say 3 health or less normally, and it gets minus 4 and gets put down to 0, it can't go -1 health. Like, it stops at 0. Hitting any enemy that has 0 health with the boomerang kills it instantly. The problem with me in finding these kind of glitches in games is that whenever I find one, I always want to try and test it on everything, and then that makes me just try and do that one thing without, you know, being practical and probably using something that's smarter. And remember how I said this could possibly be a really short run? We technically, well, actually we can't because we're actually missing a sword, but once we find a sword, we can go, if we find level 9, we can go kill Ganon. And that's all you really need to do to beat the game, and then once you kill Ganon and find where Zelda is, well, that's it. If you're wondering why on earth am I trying to deal with using the boomerang on the bats, it's because the bats, well, keys, have a weird property with them. They were never meant to be able to take a hit. So if they were given plus health and you have a boomerang and you try and stun them, they just keep on going. The keys cannot be stunned, which I think is the only enemy that can happen to. I haven't tried it with the little tiny slimes, but I have a feeling that that will happen too. And now, as you can see here, I'm going to open up where the little warp should normally be. Both staircases take you to the exact same location. The way Zelda works is that one screen can only take you to one location. And oh my god, this temple palette, or this dungeon palette. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I can barely see where I am right now. That's hideous. And this is probably the worst palette that I've seen Zelda Randomizer generate. I could, if I were more immature, well, I am more immature, I just don't want to make the joke, make a very easy joke about this dungeon. But, yeah. This could quite possibly be the worst possible room setup to have wall masters in. Yeah, not only do I not have the magical shield for these little turrets, but yeah, bubbles knocking you around isn't very nice. There's a dig dogger again. I don't have the recorder, so can't really do anything about that. Even the people who give you more bombs, the cost it takes is randomized, and as you can see from my bomb counter, so is the amount of bombs that it gives you. It seems like each one now gives you 5 bombs instead of 4. And finding the power bracelet in a dungeon is actually much nicer find than the original Legend of Zelda, because now since the warps are placed where normal caves would be, yeah, important things can be hidden under power bracelet areas. And even in, since this is taken from possible second quest overworld, there are areas that you need the power bracelet for that were in the second quest overworld. And I realized something trying to do that bomb trick. You need an actual sword in order to do it. You can't use the wand. So I have to kill this thing the normal way. Also, as you can see, the Dodongo has some questionable not hit detection, but it seems like it can walk over things a lot more than it probably should. Yeah, I really didn't need to pick up the Triforce, but as I mentioned earlier, it's a free heal and gets you out of the dungeon, so why not take it? By a stroke of complete luck, I happened to find an area that had two dungeons right next to each other. Unfortunately, it seems like, how do I actually get into the dungeons? So, yeah, you can definitely tell that you need to bomb one of these walls. If this were, say, a second dungeon quest, or second quest dungeon, yeah, that makes it interesting as you gotta rub up against every single wall because you have no idea what might be a walkthrough wall. And now that we have the silver arrow, we can actually deal with Gomas. With all the Gomas in this dungeon, I'm going to assume that this is based on level 8 enemies, as that's the only one I think actually where blue Gomas period spawn, but yeah, having two of them in one dungeon, this must be level 8. It's weird to have two pretty much identical rooms for dungeons, as we just got out of a dungeon that had this kind of setup with the bubbles and the turrets and the wall masters. Now, since this dungeon seems to be pretty large if it is based on level 8, and truth be told, I tend to meander around a bit, I'm actually going to speed up a fair amount in this dungeon. So, well, here we go. Well, it seems like I'm getting pretty lucky this run. Also, yeah. Yeah, so magical key, always a nice find. And well, now that I've found everything in this dungeon and I'm pretty sort of deep into it, or yeah, that I'm gonna have to do this whole wraparound, I think that rather than going around and, doing the whole thing, I'm just going to quick reset and just go get the Triforce to recover the health that I lost. Because it's right in the next room. Now, in this episode, we have gotten 4 dungeons down, made a nice little diamond in the Triforce, and not found a sword. But I think that we've made good progress, especially since we now have, except for a sword, everything we need to beat the quest. So, I hope you enjoyed watching, and this is the first time I've actually died in a video. So, thank you for watching. Hope to see you soon.